Good morning, Rabutai. Welcome to the class and breakfast. Today is dedicated in loving memory of Vanessa's mom, Diana Cohen, Alea Shalom Lilu Nishmat Diana Bat Sofi, sponsored by Vanessa and Joe God. Breakfast is also dedicated in loving memory of Victor Shukur, Alea Shalom Lilu Nishmat Victor Cheduri Shukur Ben Rachel, Alea Shalom, sponsored by Leah and Freddie Ini. Breakfast in the class is dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of Meir Ben Adelia, sponsored anonymously. As well as the week of cold brew in the Sammy Sayed, in loving memory of Sammy Sayed, Shlomo ben Rivka, sponsored by his son Isaac Sayed. In loving memory as well of Nurit Roshan Zamir, Lilu Nishmat Nurit Nushafarin Bat Hanum Yehuda, Alea Shalom, sponsored by the Zamir family, and as well for Refuah Shlema for Yitzhak ben Sarah, that he should recover from surgery immediately. Rabotai, I gave a class last night, and I was asked by a couple of people who went to the class. They asked me if I recorded it. So I said, sadly, I didn't record it last night. So they said, was there any way you could give it over today in the class so that we'll have a recording of it, because they wanted to remember the Klalim. It's a fascinating topic. So that's what we're going to learn together today in an abridged version of what we learned last night. You know, the end of Yehuda's impassioned speech. Yehuda comes in and he says, you need to let Benjamin go. It's going to kill my father if you don't let him go. Please let me stay as a slave instead. Because if not, how could I go and see my father, Bira Asher Yimsa et Avi? I can't see the damage, the pain that this is going to cost my father. You need to let me take his place. At this stage, V'lo yachol Yosef litapek. Yosef can't hold back anymore. L'chol hanitzavim alav, to all those that are standing there. He can't hold back. He's trying to play this game. He's trying to give the brothers the tikkun, many different interpretations as to what Yosef's motivations were. But whatever the case is, whatever Yosef was trying to do, this pasuk at this stage is when Yosef, his patience, his compassion wins out. He can't do it anymore. Lo yachol litapek. He throws everyone out of the room. Everyone needs to leave. And there was nobody there, says the pasuk, Behitvada, when Yosef let himself be known to his brothers. Now, I'm looking at this and I see a tremendous amount of pain, of anger, of animosity between brothers that's coming to a head, in all of the story and how it's developed. And now, in this moment, Yosef is trying now to get past it. Lo yachol Yosef litapek. We learn from this conversation 5 incredible tools, perhaps the most important tools, one might say, of conflict resolution, of being able to bury the hatchet, to put the fight aside and move on. All learned and gleaned from the teachings that come out of this one conversation. So Rabotai, I want to take you through these ideas. The first thing is, Yosef now, he's ready to tell his brothers who he is. Vayiten et kolo bebechi. He raises his voice in crying. V'yishme'u Mitzrayim, and Egypt hears. Vayishma bet Paro, and the house of Paro hears. So his crying is so loud, it's so extensive, it's so intense, that not only does the house of Paro hear Yosef crying, but all of Egypt knows that Yosef is crying. This is not in the age of Twitter, Rabotai, and Facebook and Instagram. No one could be, shooting a story live saying, I'm right outside Yosef's room. The crying is crazy. How did everybody find out about it? It was to such a degree that either the rumor mill was spreading it so fast, or that it was so loud in physical volume that all of Egypt was able to hear Yosef cry. Unbelievable. But the question is, what did they hear? What did they hear? What did the house of Paro hear? And it's interesting to note, all it says is Vayiten kolo bebechi. He raises his voice in crying. Our rabbis tell us in the Berachav Shema Kolenu that we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for something interesting. Shema Kolenu Adonai Elokeinu. Husverachem Alenu. Kabel berachamim beratzon et tfilatenu. So first we talk about Hashem, listen to our voice. Then we talk about listen to our and receive our prayers. Our Chachamim explain that Shema Kolenu means please listen to my voice without me even giving you any words. Sometimes Borei Olam can listen to the crying of a person without him having or her having elucidated, expressed any words to that pain. The pain itself is enough. Like it says in Mitzrayim, V'yishma Amonai et kolenu, ve'et lachatzenu ve'et. So just hearing the sound of the voice without anything more was enough. Here too, Yosef is crying, but there are no words. So why is this an important part of the story over here? Why is this the first thing we need to hear? He's only going to tell them Ani Yosef in just a minute. So what news were they transmitting? They were transmitting the depth and the profundity of his cries. Rabotai, the first step in ensuring that when you decide to make shalom, that the shalom sticks is get the emotion out of the way first. Scream into a pillow, cry at home. Don't bring that to the meeting. Don't bring that to the table. Because by definition, if you come to the table emotional, you're going to say something, you're going to express it in a way that you're going to kill the chances of your shalom lasting. So the first thing is, try as much as you can to get the emotion out of the way before you start. Now that Yosef has cried so loudly, he's so much pain in the depths of his heart that he got out, that the Pasuk's telling you, look, everyone in Egypt was able to hear that. Okay? That's how much he had to get out before he could utter a single word. And then what happens? As soon as he's got that out of the way, Vayomer Yosef elechav, Yosef says to his brothers, Ani Yosef ha'od avichai. The first rule is, get the emotion out of the way. The second rule is, state your objective clearly. What do you want to get out of this peace offering? What do you want to walk away from the table with? Yosef says, I am Yosef. And I'm not here to punish you. I don't want to yell, scream. All I want right now is, Ha'od avichai. I just want our family to be back together again. I just want to see my father. He mirrors the sound that Yehuda says. Remember, what are the last words Yehuda says before the conversation shifts to Yosef? The last words he says, Ki ech e'ele el avi. How can I go up to my father? I'm worried about what this is going to do to my father. Yosef says, me too. Ani Yosef, ha'od avichai. If this was me, I would have had pages and pages and pages. My speech would have been longer, right, than any speech that any president ever made. Don't you remember what you did to me 22 years ago? You threw me in the pit. I had nothing to eat. You did this, you did that. You sent my father the fake message. I went to Potiphar's wife. I sat in prison for years. Then I was brought here. You don't understand the challenges that on and on. I would have given it to them. I would have unloaded my gun straight into their face. And yet, what do we hear here from Yosef? Ani Yosef, ha'od avichai. It is very possible that entering into shalom, it's important to remember that the problems that cause the situation that you're in are not going to be solved. But maybe it's enough to have something with the person, even if you can't have what you once had. Maybe it's enough to be able to have a big Friday night dinner with all the family, without two people being unable to be in the same room. Maybe you don't have to be business partners anymore, right? You feel the person did your heart, he messed you over. Okay, maybe you don't have to be business partners. But can you be in shul and say Shabbat Shalom? Can the kids actually go over and play with their cousins? What's the agenda? State clearly the objective of this peace process that you're coming to the table. And maybe you can't have everything, but maybe Ha'od Avichai, maybe our Father can see us once again all together in the same room. You know, one of the great tragedies that I always felt from my grandfather, Selim Farhi Alav Shalom. You know, by the time his youngest child was born in Halab, his oldest child had already escaped from Syria, because the situation then was very, very bad. Okay, in the late 60s. After the 67 war, the Syrians took revenge on the Jews that they had under their thumb. They were humiliated in the war. So they took it out on the people, the locals. Terrible things that went on over there. Pogroms, you know, killings, crazy. So my father's oldest sibling had already escaped by the time the youngest was born. Then some of the family got stuck in Syria. Then other ones escaped slowly. Then some moved to America. And some moved to South America. And some moved to Israel. Rabotai, because of the vicissitudes and the nature of life, all of the brothers, all the sisters wound up going for a bar mitzvah, being with them here, being with them here. But there was always one that wasn't able to make it. The first picture that exists of all of my father's family together is a picture that I took, unfortunately, at the funeral of my grandfather. Which means that the first time all 10 members of the family were in the same room together was when they sat Shiva for my grandpa, which means that my grandpa never laid eyes, not once in his life did he ever see his entire family in one room together. He never laid eyes on his whole family, because that picture was taken on the first day of Shiva. Rabotai, Yosef says, Ha'od Avichai. How many more years does my father have left? Look, we have issues, no question, and we'll resolve them when we can. But for right now, let's just bring the family together. Can we heal at least enough to be able to be there for Dad? What a beautiful idea. Ha'od Avichai, state the objective. What happens after the objective is stated? Rule number 3. Vayiter et kolo bebechi. Ani Yosef ha'od Avichai. They could not answer, they could not speak. They were so embarrassed from him. They withdrew, they pulled back, they were so humiliated. Once you've stated what it is that you want, Rabotai, it's important to state what it is that is the impediment, is the challenge to peace. Now let's look at what Yosef says. Vayomer Yosef elecha, gishuna elai, come close. Vayigashu, when they come close, Vayomer, they still haven't said anything. Vayomer ani Yosef achichem, I am Yosef, your brother. Asher mechartem oti Mitzrayim, you sold me to Egypt. The extent of Yosef's condemnation, the extent of Yosef's tongue lashing is, I am Yosef, your brother, that you sold to Egypt. Chalas, that's the whole speech. So you want to be able to get to a place of shalom. You stated what you want. Okay, what's the roadblock? You have to state your hurt. You have to say what's the problem, what's the challenge, what do we need to get past? But as important as it is to state your hurt, it is important not to overstate your hurt. Yosef could have talked about the loneliness. He could have talked about the treachery and the rebellion in the family against his father. He could have spoke about the betrayal. But Yosef, he doesn't go into feelings. He sticks with the facts. Most peaceful resolutions are never achieved because we get bogged down in the details that people can argue about. So don't talk about the feelings. Don't talk about the subjective parts of the story. Talk only about the facts. Yosef says, fact, I am your brother. Fact, you sold me. Fact, I came down to Egypt. There's no arguing on that. Yosef doesn't say, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything to provoke you. Because they would have had something to say about that. Yosef says, this is what happened. This is what we agree happened. We need to get past this. State, but don't overstate. Okay? Rabotai. Yosef says exactly what he says. So he brings them close. He tells them exactly how he's feeling. But the minute he says what the roadblock is, once you've stated what the challenge is, Rabotai, he does the rule number 4, which is now that you've expressed what it is that's going to get in the way, minimize the distance. Rule number 4, minimize the distance. Ve'ata, what does ata mean? Now. He's telling them, now that we've just explained that you sold me, you sold your own brother, ve'ata, before anything else goes into your mind, al te'atzevu. Don't be upset. Don't be saddened. Ve'al yichar be'enechem. Don't get angry. Don't stop fighting about this. Ki mechartem otihena. Why? Ki lemechya shelachani. Don't worry. It's not such a big deal. Minimize. The larger the gap is between you, the longer the bridge is to cross, the less likely it is the other person is going to be able to cross the bridge. So what does Yosef do? Once he says, he states but doesn't overstate the hurt, what does he do? He says, look, we're so close one to another. Look at how little there's space there is between us. Because at the end of the day, what did you even do to me already? It's true, you sold me. It's true, I'm in Egypt. But look at how well it worked out. I'm sitting on the throne. I'm now going to be able to support the whole family. You know, Rabotai, if you do something, and we've all let somebody down in our lives, if you do something to hurt someone else, and then you come back to them, I'm so sorry, I can't believe it, you feel terrible. The person says, oh, don't worry, I know that you forgot me, but 2 seconds later, I managed to borrow the money from someone else. Really, it was no big deal. I'm so sorry, I was supposed to call the school for you to get the kid. Oh, don't worry about it, my kid's already in. No harm done. You feel bad because that's your deal is with God. Because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. But if you're worried that you hurt me, don't worry, I'm not hurt. So the next step is to minimize for the person the distance that they need to travel. Yosef says it twice. You didn't send me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent me here. There was a good reason. There was a good purpose. But Rabotai, rule number 5 is very powerful. Rule number 5 in making sure that a person's peace attempts stick is found in the very next segment of the Pasuk. The Pasuk tells us that after he tells them all of this, he says to them, V'hine enechem ro'ot. Go tell Dad to come down. V'hine enechem ro'ot. Your eyes see. V'hine achi Benyamin. And the eyes of my brother Benyamin, ki pi hamedaber alechem. That look, it's my mouth, I'm speaking to you. You can see it's me. Al-Mefarshim explained that he said to them, look, I'm speaking Lashon HaKodesh. You know that it's actually me. Another interpretation is he says, Ki pi hamedaber, it's my mouth that's speaking. In our family, we only know how to say what we're feeling inside. Remember in the beginning, V'lo yachalu ledabero l'shalom. They couldn't speak to him l'shalom because they hated him. We don't speak in the mouth one way and in the heart another in our family. So if you hear me saying, I'm not upset at you, I want you to go get Dad, I want to support the whole family, you can trust that I mean it, because kipiya medaber, in our family, when somebody says it, that's what they mean. Okay? But the Mefarshim ask, what does it mean? Your eyes and the eyes of Benyamin. They're all standing there together. Whatever he sees, Benyamin, they see. Whatever they see, he sees. Enehem shavim, es the Mefarshim. Their eyes are equal. They're all standing in a line in front. But we learn the most magnificent idea here, which gives us the last rule for today's class. And that is, Rabotai, Rabotai, Rabotai. Let's look back at the beginning. When he tells the brothers, Ani Yosef, ha'od avichai, is my father still alive? The Pasuk says the brothers could not answer him. They couldn't open their mouths. Even when he calls them close, it doesn't say they said anything. So Yosef is literally on a monologue here. He's dominating the playtime. He's on the field with the ball, all by himself. The first words they say is after the whole conversation. He hugs and kisses Binyamin. He hugs and kisses his brothers. And then finally the brothers say what they need to say. Look all the way in Pasuk Tet Zayin, V'inashek l'kol echad, v'yefk alehem v'achar echen. And after all this, Dibru echad ito, his brothers spoke to him. I don't know, what did they say? I'm imagining they said sorry. Right? I'm imagining they said, that was when they said what they needed to say. But up until this point, they couldn't say anything. They were dumbstruck. They were literally like paralyzed by this realization. Okay? Listen to this, Rabotai. Listen to this. Oh my gosh. When Yosef says, Ani Yosef, it says all the brothers, Nifalumi Panav, they stepped back. They were humiliated. They were embarrassed. They couldn't answer. Everyone stepped back except for Benjamin. Benjamin didn't do anything. Not involved. Doesn't know what's going on. Sror Hamor writes, unbelievable. Yosef said, Geshuna. He tells his brothers, come close. Who do you tell to come close? Someone who is far away. He called the other brothers close and left Binyamin where he was standing. And then he said to the brothers, Ani Yosef, Achichem asher mechartem oti Misraima. He told it to them close so that no one, not even Binyamin, would hear. Therefore the pasuk says, Enechem ve'enei achi Benyamin, your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benyamin, who's not standing here. He's standing all the way in the back of the room. You both can see that I'm speaking to you. But Yosef didn't tell Benyamin. And why didn't he tell Benyamin? Because Yosef was communicating to his brothers, I'm not planning on letting anybody know. Not even Dad. Rabotai, think about this. You want peace to last? Things need to be on a need-to-know basis. If this person, your wife, your brother, your father, your cousin, your uncle, your friend, no one else needs to know the details of this situation. Because if you bring them in, what are you doing? You're planting a tree of hatred somewhere else, and while you're ripping the roots out over here, something else is growing somewhere else. You're ensuring that the hatchet doesn't stay buried. I always, you hear this, unfortunately, time after time, where young couples, they'll fight, they'll go to the parents, you don't know what she said to me, you don't know what he did. And you know what the mother says? In that moment of hurt, in the moment of anger, Father, you know what they say? I never liked him. Now the young couple, they patch things up, but you can't take that back. There's a no return policy on the words, I never liked him. Right? Because you're not saying, I agree with you, what he did was wrong. They're saying, I actually disagree that he was ever the right person for you. Yosef HaSadiq says to the brothers, remember, what was my objective here? My objective was our father, Ha'od Avichai. If he's the objective, why would I bring this to him? I'm not going to say anything. Once the brothers see, Kipi hamidaber alechem, he says, your eyes and your brother Benyamin's eyes see the mouth that is speaking to you. He's saying, you both see my mouth, but you don't see it the same way. You guys can hear what I'm saying, but Benyamin's all the way over there. If you doubt my motives, why do you think I haven't brought him in on this? I'm not planning on telling anybody. And suddenly the brothers find it. They find their voice. They realize that not only is it Yosef, but that he has no bad intentions towards them. And then Vayidabru ito, and finally his brothers speak to him. Rabotai, I always point out that the funny thing is, right? Who's supposed to be the one that's supposed to make the first move here? The people that hurt the other person. So many times a person is sitting there waiting for someone else to say sorry. You know what? I'm perfectly fine. I don't need him anymore. I don't need her anymore. My business is fine. My family is fine. I'm married. I have a family. They don't want to? Okay, I'm right over here. I'm fine. When they want to come to Shalom, I'm right over here. They know my address. Who's supposed to say sorry? The brothers. And yet Yosef, even though they don't say one word, he doesn't wait for their sorry to start the process of peace. He does everything that he needs to in order to allow them to be able to get there. Because I think the words are so important. The pasuk doesn't say that they didn't want to answer. The pasuk says, "Velo yachelu echav." They were incapable. Understand sometimes that people are incapable of apologizing. It's too much of a burden. There's too much guilt in order for them to admit that they were wrong. So take the first step. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself what your main objective is. And if the objective is getting back to a place where that works, sometimes that requires you to say something, you to do all the talking, even if they're unwilling or incapable to be able to do so. So let's review the 5 steps. The first step is take the emotion out of it. Get out all your anger before you come to the table. You're upset, scream, talk to whoever you need to talk to in order to be able to get this out of the way so that when you come to the table, you're actually in your most rational and calm state of mind that you can be. That's Vayitenet Kolo. The second step that we learn in this conflict resolution is state your objective. Say what you want to get out of this meeting. If the person doesn't understand what you want, they might think that what you're trying to get is something that they can't give. So be clear about what your objectives are. Even if you can't have the whole thing, at least you can have a part, and that's oftentimes more than enough. Now that you've stated the objective, state the challenge. What is the problem? What is the hill that we need to climb? The fact that I was hurt here, and stick to the facts. Don't overstate the hurt. Don't express with all sorts of adjectives and feelings and expressions, because those things will bog you down. The person will argue about the way it happened or the way it seemed. Stick to the facts about what happened. Ani Yosef achichem asher mechartem oti Mitzrayim. Exactly what happened, which is indisputable. Now that we know that that's the fight, that brings us to rule number 4, which is if this is the hill, let's minimize the difference. Anyway, you know what? Bottom line, it's not that big a deal. I'm in a better place now. I learned to grow from the way you treated me. ... Minimize the difference. And finally, last but not least, is the need to know basis. People don't need to know. Don't talk to everyone else. The only people who need to be brought in on this is you and the other person, or possibly the person that's mediating. No one else needs to know. Binyamin is kept out of it. Yaakov is kept out of it. And of course, everybody else, the Egyptians, the only thing that they've heard is kol. They don't know anything else. None of the other details. Preserving that person's dignity and making sure that you haven't planted other elements in other places while you're dealing with this here will give you the best chance for success.